Hi and welcome to my channel. This is a short update on the Enfield, which has done about 10,000 miles, and I've done a few modifications to make this machine much better off-road and on-road. We have done changes to the suspension. We have increased the power output by 20%, which basically means now I can ride with the big boys on the big bikes. And I'm just going to basically walk around the bike and show you how straightforward it is to improve this machine to something really what I think it should have been when it left the factory. And these modifications have been done pretty much on a shoestring, really. You know, they're cheap, they're easy. I've done them all myself. There's plenty of forums and enthusiasts online. And what I like about the Himalayan is it takes me back to the teenage days of tinkering with bikes and cars, and you can basically do most, if not everything, yourself. So stay tuned and we'll roll on. The first modification that we did was we installed the lift kit. So in the top of the fork there is a 50mm cap that screws into the fork, which effectively extends the fork length by 40mm, which obviously brings the front end up by 40mm. Inside there you can see the hagon shock. So it's a UK made, and this spring is rated to 100 to 200 kilograms, and effectively this shock has rebound damping, which makes a difference, much firmer ride, and the back end doesn't bottom out anymore. Spring and shock on the Himalayan gives a lot of sag, so this gets away from that. So with the hagon shock and the front end lift on the forks, we can effectively lift the bike up 40mm, a bit more ground clearance, and a much firmer ride off-road. On the subject of the forks, we've put a 15 weight oil in, and in the top basically we've put a 6mm spacer between the cap and the spring to give a 6mm preload, which effectively now, I would say, when I'm riding rough ground, you can feel the forks actually working now, whereas before they just felt not bottomed out, but they just felt a bit plush, whereas now you can actually feel the springs working with the heavier oil and a little bit of preload. I was going to go and put some upgrade the springs in the forks, but if I'm honest with you, they're absolutely fine, I think, as they are. We bought some 20mm spacers. These are just M6 bushes. I think they're maybe 25 or 30mm spacers. You can get them from Hitchcock's as a kit, which effectively lifts the front fender up slightly, which in the muddy stuff stops a lot of mud compacting under the guard. Never really had a problem with that with these tyres because they are quite shredding. These are the Continental TK C80s, and they've done about 5,000 miles, and I must admit they ride well on the road, and they do give me a bit of confidence in the soft stuff as well. Cockpit wise, we've got, this is a wireless phone charger. So I have an old Huawei phone, it's a couple of years old, but it's still a very high spec Android phone, which I run View Ranger, Memory Map and some other navigation apps on there, Google Maps, and I just basically connect the old phone to my new phone's Wi-Fi hotspot, so it updates that way. It's wireless charging, so there's no cables. So on the map, we're going to go down this track, we're going to go through a gate ahead, and then according to the map we go down into Roasted. We've got a USB socket here, so it's getting a bit rusty in there now. So that's permanently on just for charging things when I fit a tank bag. Come to that in a second. We've got the auxiliary light switch, and we've got the ABS off switch. ABS off switch, really handy if you're doing loose downhills. When I first took this off road, I couldn't stop because the ABS was on, braking on very loose gravel. So the ABS off switch just effectively switches off the supply to the ABS unit, ECU. As easy as that, really. So I think that's quite well documented on YouTube, but effectively I think it's the 5 amp fuse in the fuse box. All I remember is it's an orange cable with a white tracer. So what you do is you cut that, you join it, put it through a switch, and switch your ABS on and off, like so. Handlebars, I've gone for the Renthal Enduros, so they're quite wide, and I've also got 20mm risers on there, so I've got a nice wide feel, really good for standing up, very comfortable, and the wideness actually makes it feel better for stability as well. So you know, when I'm on really loose mud traction, because the bars are wider, I feel I'm a bit more planted. That's a ram mount. It's got a ram mount on there. I've actually got a TomTom rider connection, so if I wanted to take the rider off my V-Strom, I can. So I've got the foldable brake levers, clutch and brake lever on there, and I've also got under there heated grips as well. So in the winter, makes a difference having heated grips, definitely. And that's just a bit of glue that's gone a bit manky on there. I think that's Gorilla Glue, that, but they're not moving anywhere. Okay, so that's the cockpit. I'll just show you the lights now. So these lights at the front, these spotlights, are very effective. They're actually better than the headlight, and I've got them set so they dip, so it illuminates about 4 or 5 metres in front of the bike. So they're not too dazzling for oncoming traffic, but they are very good for illuminating, obviously, where you're riding in the short distance, even off road as well. So when you're in the woods and that, you know, you get a very powerful light. These are the jerrycan recent additions. So this is the jerrycan mounting kits. So the jerrycan kits on there, both sides. Made the brackets myself. They just screw. You can see on the back, but there's some bosses on the underneath there. You can see there. Engine bars, I went for the Givey engine bars. The stock Enfield ones kind of come out quite low down, and when you're in the ruts, certainly in the UK, you know, when you're riding where a Land Rover's been, the Enfield ones are too wide, and I always felt I was going to get wedged in a rut, whereas the Givey ones are actually quite narrow. And the other thing as well is they give you a good anchoring point for, you've got to put in straps through here, a real strong anchoring point there. It bolts nicely to the frame, so I've dropped that quite a few times. I've fallen over quite a few times actually on these bars, and they're holding up very, very well. I've got the stock luggage racks. I don't have hard panniers, I have soft panniers, so I've just got some neoprene on here. This is just like a sticky neoprene, which just gives the luggage something to bite onto. Lextech exhaust, and you can't see, but I've modified the baffle in there. This is an open baffle, which is quite loud, although there is a baffle in there. The actual baffle itself is an open pipe, so I've welded a washer on the end of the pipe, on the intake of the baffle, and drilled some holes around the actual baffle itself, which has quietened it down. It's actually, if anything, made it go a bit better. Probably put a bit more back pressure in there. On the back end, we've basically modified the number plate, so the bracket's cut. So what we've done is we've effectively mounted the number plate onto the pannier rail, you can see there. And what that does basically is it just gets rid of it being quite low, so when you're off road, if you fell off, it's not going to snap off as such. Got the auxiliary toolkit on there, which is just mounted on the inside there. Engine wise, we've got the air filter, so I've just fitted a DNA air filter on the inside of there, which you can't see. I'll take the cover off to show you that. And we're running the Tech camshaft. So the Tech camshaft has given a significant improvement in performance. So now the bike cruises at 60 mile an hour. It's got a lot more easy power. I mean, it's only 20%, but it's a very noticeable 20%. The bike revs nicely, and that's one of the reasons I fitted the Lex Tech exhaust and the air filter for it all to run together. Gear selector, I'm using a folding lever, slightly longer gear selector, although the stock gear selector is okay actually when you stood up, because when you're on the pegs, your feet kind of, your toes are there. So I get why the Himalayan peg is actually shorter, because it actually works better when you stood up. But I've got used to that now, and obviously with it being folding, if anything, I think the stock Himalayan lever's probably stronger because it's steel, whereas that's alloy. So, famous last words. We've got the Luveman chain oiler on there. So the chain oiler, obviously that I just press the button for 20 seconds and it lubes the chain. So this little hack is known as the booster plug hack. And what the booster plug does is it adds more resistance to the air temperature sensor for the ECU. So the Himalayan's got two air temperature sensors. It's got the ambient temperature sensor, which you get the readout on the dashboard, which is in the wrong place because it always reads too hot. So on this bike, I've actually moved that to the front. The second air temperature sensor is part of the engine fueling system, and that's inside the airbox. And that measures the air temperature. And basically, in theory, is the colder the air, the more fuel we need to compensate. So what we can do is we can do what we call a hack, which is the booster plug. And the hack that I've done is get an additional 10 kilo ohm resistor. Sorry, a thermistor, not resistor. So it's a negative temperature coefficient 10 kilo ohm thermistor, and wire that in series with the airbox, with the air temperature sensor in the airbox. There is a multi-plug you can just unplug, and you can actually make a lead up which actually, rather than cut any cables, that actually interjoins the connection to the air temperature sensor. That's effectively what the booster plug kit is. So you can buy a booster plug kit that's pre-done for about £100, and you just plug and play. That's exactly what it is. But if you're like me, and you like a bit of a skinflint, then for £3 you can buy the component from RS or eBay and wire it in yourself, and it does exactly the same thing. So this basically adds a bit more fuel to the engine, and it's noticeable. There's no stalling on this bike. The pickup's better. And before I fitted the camshaft, actually, and we had the boost plug on, and definitely makes a difference. And it only makes a difference on acceleration and tick over. Apparently, normal riding, I don't think it alters anything. It's mainly the acceleration, so it's a bonus. And then the other thing we've got is the that I haven't actually I failed to mention is my bike keeps falling over in the mud, so I've had to put a bigger foot on the stand. For some reason, the stock side stand on the Himalayan is terrible. Now the seat on the Himalayan, the stock seat, is quite low, which has advantages for if you're starting out off road, or for people who haven't got long legs or are short. Even tall people, some people prefer to be sat low down, so you can waggle. In other words, put your feet on the ground in the rough. Some of the taller bikes can be off-putting on very rutty terrain because you're always worried about falling off because you're so high. With the Himalayan, we've actually increased the seat height by 40mm. I'm quite tall, and it's when the difference from sitting down to standing up, it's quite a way on the stock bike. So I found just by adding 40mm of memory foam to the seat, just undid the staples, took the covering off, put some memory foam back on, put some vinyl covering on, restapled it. It's made a big difference to the height of the seat, and it's actually a bit more comfortable as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the bike as it is. So super machine, absolutely love it. Yeah, there it is. There's my Himalayan. So just to round up with the increase in performance, very noticeable increase. I did a ride last week, 250 miles with much bigger CC machines, kept up absolutely fine. No problems at all. It's got lazy torque now for climbing the hills. It trundles along nicely, very light throttle, plenty of low down torque. So this bike puts out, I think it's 24 pounds per foot or 32 newton meters of torque, only at 4,500 RPM, whereas a CRF is putting out 18 pounds per foot at 9,500 RPM. So the difference with this bike is that the torque is very low down, so it's very relaxed, so it just tractors through everywhere. So where a lot of lads are revving the hell out of the bikes and they're tearing the ground up and throwing all the mud up in the air, the Himalayan just thumps up, just tracked like a rotavator, just literally thumps its way up. So yeah, a bit taller, a bit more power, easy to look after. There you go. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Yeah, thanks for watching.